I got a whole bunch of videos on how to change out an outlet, but I'm going to do another one. I've got this outlet over here, and I want to make sure that the washer and dryer going into this thing. So this thing's probably been in here for 35 years since the place was built, and I think it's time to swap out the outlet now that the washer and dryer are out of the closet, and I've got access to it. So I've got a tester in here. I'm going to go turn on the breaker, and we're going to see that the power light came on right now. So I'm going to turn the breaker off. So now I know that there's no power in there. And I'm also going to get a meter to make sure there's no power. I put an AC meter in there just to verify that there was no voltage on either side in case this was switched. You can also buy one of those little wand things that you I got a lot of paint in the screw head, so the screw driver is not really working right, and this screw could be stripped also. When I put a lot of pressure on there, it doesn't want to come out. So if you like my videos, do a thumbs up, subscribe, like, share, comment. If you want to donate to my PayPal, ask for the info. I'm going to move the camera out of the way so I can get in here and unscrew this thing, and then we'll continue the video. This is the standard type of outlet. There's not really a lot of wiring and to pull the thing out. There's enough. There's a ground screw over here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure, even though the power's off, it's good to be cautious. You don't want to put your hands on both sides of this thing. You have a wire going in from the back, but you want to learn best practices. Don't put your hands on the sides, because if power was leaking or if power was on, goodbye to you. So what I'm going to do first is I will remove the ground wire, because that is the shortest wire. And once I remove the ground wire, then I'll be able to pull this wire out a little bit more and do my work, which I don't really have to do. There's two choices. You can have the wire on the screw, or you can have the wire in the back. And I'm not 100% sure, but just by reading a lot of stuff on the internet, most of the electricians prefer the wire going on the screw for a better contact, a better connection, compared to in the back. Now, all of the outlets that I've changed out over here, all of the back connections were hanging out a little bit, and they were not the greatest. But I'm going to go in here. You don't need to see me do that. I'm going to unscrew this, and then I'm going to go in and show you. There's a little tang at the back that you press in to remove these wires. I'll show you what that looks like. You can see how the ground wire is wrapped around there really tight. And so you have a choice. You can just mess with it, or you can take the screw out. Sometimes the screw comes out perfectly, and if it does, then you don't have to go in there and make another loop. Or you can use some needle nose pliers and just go in there and pull it out, and then later on you'll wrap it back and tighten it down. I'm going to see if I can pull the screw out. I got the screw out. Now, you want to remember which side of the outlet the wires were on. In this case, for me, the ground is on the bottom, and the white wire is on the left. The black wire is on the right. I'm trying to see if I can get a good view of this for you. So there is a little slot. This is pretty big. I don't know if this has got, I'm hoping this isn't 14 gauge wire. It looks like 12. I mean, I'm hoping it's 14 and not 12. I ran into that before. These are older outlets, and they're just a nightmare as far as the older outlets in here could accept 12 or 14. It's really weird. So there's a little notchy poo on the back of this thing that you should be able to put your screwdriver in and press and release the wire. That screwdriver is too big. Sometimes you have to press inward. Sometimes on this thing it's got an angle, and on some of these some of my that I did, I was not able to remove the wire. I had to literally crack the thing apart. And that it might be the case with this. So I'm going to move the camera out of the way. In this case, I had to go in at an angle. You can see how this is kind of at an angle, so I went like that and pressed the release and the wire popped out. So now I've got my white wire and black wire, and I'm looking on the bottom, on the back of this thing. It says for 12 or 14 gauge, which I don't even know if they make these outlets anymore that are for 12 or 14 gauge. This should be 14. This should be just a 15 amp circuit. So let me get out the outlet, the new outlet. And on a lot of the changes that I did, I stripped the wire and I put it on the screw because I thought it was safer and better. I could just shove the wire into here right now in the back in this little slot and it would be fine. And when you do that beforehand, if you're going to do that, screw these screws in all the way. You don't want to do that when you've got wires on there. But if you're not going to use these things, screw these in all the way, bottom them out. A lot of people don't do it, but there's no reason to have it in the box. Some people even like to go in there and tape around there. It's just up to you. So I'm going to screw my screws in. Like I said, the outlet that I took out is made for 12 or 14 gauge. This looks like, I don't know. This wire is pretty big. I don't know if this is going to work. These holes in here are really tiny. We're going to see it together right now. Let's see. We have a good view. We'll see if this is going to go in or not. Ground on the bottom. Get my hands away from the screw. And let's see if that's going to feed in. That's not going to feed in. So they put in 12 gauge wire on this, which means that I'm going to have to go pop a loop on each one of these, and I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to come back and show you the wires on the screws. I put a loop on the white wire and the black wire. I've got a Romex cutter that will do that for me, but of course I can't find the tool because I don't put things away in the right place, and it's lost right now. I'll find it later. But I just used some needle nose pliers, put a loop on there, and you really don't want, I'll show you what it looks like, but you really don't want to have a loop that with a lot of bare wire hanging past the outlet, and you don't want insulation under your screw. So let me put this on and then I'll show you what it looks like. As I said, I believe this is 12 gauge wire, and probably to code I should be using an outlet that is 12 gauge, that can handle 12 gauge. As I showed you, the outlet that I took out could handle 12 or 14. But this is a 15 amp circuit, which could have been wired with 14 gauge wire. So, I don't know if I'm violating code or not, but I don't know why they wired this with 12 gauge when they did. But the wire's under the screw right now. I haven't tightened it down. You can see it's a nice clean loop. Insulation of the back of the wire, so when I tighten everything down, the insulation's not going to be underneath it. And I'm going to stop the video right now and go down to the store. This is a 20 amp circuit. So I thought it was a 15 amp. I checked the breaker. It's a 20 amp, and that's why there's 12 gauge wire in here. So I wanted to double check. I didn't understand why the heck this was being done. So I am going to go out and buy a 20 amp outlet and do this the right way, the safe way, so that this doesn't melt and burn up. And I'll be back. Off to the store I go. Back from the store. I knew something was not right here because I was wondering why the heck are they putting a 12 gauge wire in an outlet that's only 15 amps. So I checked the circuit breaker to double check, and it's a 20 amp circuit, which means that's why they got the 12 gauge wire instead of 14. So I went out and I bought a 12 gauge. It's a 20 amp outlet. See over there how it says 20 amp? 20 amp is 12 gauge. 15 amp is 14 gauge. Now remember how I showed you how the wire came out of the back? You press that little thing. They don't have that anymore. The newer ones, you slide the wire in underneath the little metal piece over there, and then you screw the screw down. But The other way that you can tell it's a 20 amp, with this you had no idea. Now they have this little line coming out over here. 20 amp plug, but it's a 20 amp outlet. So that's how you know that it's 20 amp without going through this confusion thing that I just went through. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to remove this wire from this new old outlet, and I'm going to put it on the 20 ampere, and I'm going to show you what it looks like. You can see the ground and everything is exactly the same. Look at your circuit when you're putting it together. This little clamp is added on here to attach these two wires together, these two screws together. If the circuit that you're working on is switched somehow, and you've got power on one side and the other side is on a switch, then you're probably going to have to remove this piece. So make sure you check that before you close everything up. That is the first wire on the screw. See, there's no bare wire hanging past the outlet like you usually see, and everything is under the screw. It's tight. It's got a good contact, nice tight contact. As I said, I've got a little jumper bar over here, so it doesn't really matter if I put it on the top screw or the bottom screw, or one on the top and one on the bottom on the other side. See that little piece over here? So as you're tightening down the screw, the wire butts up against this little piece over here so it doesn't go spinning all the way around. Normally, I like to try to take the ground screw out. This won't come out. I like to take it out beforehand and attach it before I have wires on here, so I don't have to have my hands on both sides. And then I go and I do the other two wires. But in this case, as I said, the ground wire is too short. So, I don't even know if I can pull it. No, I can't pull it out further. The ground wire is much shorter than the power wires, so I needed to do the power wires first, and now I'm going to go in here, squeeze, open up the ground wire, wrap it around the screw, and then we're almost finished. There it is. An electrician, somebody that does this every day, somebody that makes a living off of this, has done hundreds, if not thousands of these, can crank these things out in seconds, probably like 30 seconds or so, maybe a minute. And some of them might not even turn off the power. But it doesn't matter how fast you go. You want to be careful, you want to be safe. Ground wire is nice and clean, it's wrapped around. Normally I'll go in there and remove some of the, take some sandpaper, put it around the ground wire, clean it up a little bit, which I didn't do. The wires, the two wires that you saw, those are all nicely wrapped and clean. In the beginning, as you saw, I was questioning why did they use 12 gauge wire on a 15 amp circuit, and the outlet was 12 or 14 gauge, and then I checked the circuit breaker and it said 20 amp, and I knew, okay, so that's why they have the 12 gauge wire. And so I went to the store and bought the 12 gauge 20 amp outlet, which I'm now going to push into the wall and tighten it down. When you go to the store and you buy these things, always look. Some people like to take these screws out of there, and you get home and you can't screw the thing in, and then you're really screwed. A lot of the outlet boxes nowadays are plastic. So I know you're seeing the back of my hand, sorry, but you want to be careful that you don't strip out the mounting holes. Then you've really got a problem on your hand. I'd like to push this in a little further. Can I say that on the tube? But I'm just going to screw it in. The dog is not happy that I'm making a video. She never is. I don't want to bend the tabs on there. And that is what's going to happen if I try to push this in. If I screw it in, it's going okay. So I'll do that until I get the ears right to the wall. These were, on the original, they were kind of pressed in a little bit. But they did a nice job with the install. It's off on a little bit of an angle. And now, with something like this, I could just, it's in a closet, nobody's ever going to see it. I could just throw the off-white painted cover back on the front, but I have 50 cents to waste. I bought a nice cover, and if I wanted to, I could even this out a little bit, but I don't want to break the drywall in this place. This is a washer outlet. Nobody's going to see what's going on behind here, so I'm not really worried about evening out the those little tabs on there. It looks better than it did before. What we're going to do now is, hopefully this video helped you. Again, please help me out. Subscribe, you know the routine. Thumbs up, like, share, comment. Good comments only. What else is there? Oh, that's a tight fit. That's a very tight fit. Oh, yes. Check out my video description. I'm going to leave a whole bunch of affiliate links for Amazon there, so if you're going to buy something, click on those links before you do your order. It will help me out. Let's put the power on. Hopefully it doesn't shoot the breaker. Checks out right. The two yellow lights are on. The red light is off. Let's go to the bottom one. Should be the same. It's definitely a new outlet. It's tight. Two orange on, the red off. That's going to be my installation video. Thanks for watching. I do hope it helped everybody. Be safe out there. If you don't think you're qualified to do this, or if you're not comfortable, don't do it. Whatever you do, if you're going to mess with this stuff, turn off the power to the circuit breaker. You don't mess with something like this.